So I had a bit of a moment yesterday. It was my 30th anniversary, my 30th reunion of high school after graduation. And I missed the 20th and I was feeling really bad. So I said, well, I have to go to the 30th, right? And I was extremely apprehensive of it, but it turned out really good. And I was so glad that I took the time to go back to my hometown and actually make it for this event. And the reason why I missed my 20th was I just didn't feel mentally ready at the time. High school was extremely traumatic for me. And I always kind of figured, it was the people around me. It was the bullying. It was how difficult the struggle, as a young queer adolescent. And I sort of projected all of those feelings on the people and the place that was around me. But when I got there, it was actually quite positive. And to tell you the truth, the only reason I knew it was the 30th was because a couple of people reached out to me and were asking me, were inquiring to know if I was going to be there. And so that's kind of the reason why I decided to go. And, to tell you the truth, I was kind of curious to see how people were doing and to kind of fill in that 30-year gap. And it turned out to be extremely positive. I kind of had a Romy and Michelle moment where I realized that a lot of the apprehensions I had and a lot of the negativity and a lot of the hurtful memories were actually self-inflicted and generated. I mean, I'm not saying that there was no bullying or anything, and none of those people showed up. It was really more of the people who actually cared that showed up. And in any event, I don't think that would have mattered. 30 years later, we sort of changed mentally, and I think people end up being elsewhere, in my opinion. So yeah, my big realization was, one, a lot of the pain that I was going through and a lot of the struggles were all self-inflicted. We tend to be extremely hard on ourselves, especially when we're younger. And in retrospect, I realized with maturity that there was a lot of people who were rooting for me and looking up to me. I never thought a lot of people were, looking up to me. I didn't perceive myself as an example of anything. But the feedback that I got was that, a lot of people respected the integrity I had and also said that it seemed like I didn't care what anybody thought, which is completely not true, because I absolutely did. But that's not the perception that people had of me. I'm just coming down to the lake, by the way, at our cottage here in the Eastern Townships in Quebec. It's my favorite time of the year. It's so beautiful. So takeaway is that whatever our perception was at one point in time doesn't mean that it's completely accurate. Sometimes it just takes time to kind of digest what had happened and to understand where we were coming from, to better understand the state of mind that we were in and the interpretations we were making of that reality. So whatever my reality was, which was an extremely dramatic one that was coming from the perspective of a teenager that, just felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders, is very different from the perspective that I have now as a grown-up. And I guess the moral of the story is to be careful of the inner drama that sometimes clouds our perception of reality. Truth be told is that we spend most of our time alone in our own minds and entertaining these narratives. But the narratives and stories that we tell ourselves may not be an accurate representation of what is actually happening. So one, I would say don't overindulge in your own personal dramas. And two, be patient with life and yourself. It sounds super cliche, but time does heal, or at least it gives us the maturity to better analyze and rationalize what happened in the past. Be kinder to yourself because you're a pretty fantastic person.